And this is a recorded workshop, so we're about to go live. Good. Right, so yeah, welcome back for our public workshop. So we'll hand over to Alex and Dylan for trading in public places bylaw.
Yeah, as you see, reviewing those trading in public places bylaw at the moment. And the 5 areas we want to talk to you about today are to test some of our assumptions, to get a gauge on the mobile trading sites that have previously existed and some potential new ones. Same with the market sites. To Councillor McPherson's special interest there, we've got some discussion on the use of a public footpath or public spaces for more permanent displays for al fresco dining or store displays. And we've got some potential options for roaming trading as well. And so we'll just jump straight into the first one, which is our assumptions. So we have assumed that a crowd draws a crowd, that foot traffic and people add vibrancy to the area, and that having these new forms of trading or other forms of trading deliver offerings that are not otherwise available, and they also add to the business offerings rather than take away from. We've tried to balance out fairness and competition to some extent, but we've really prioritised getting foot traffic moving around businesses as much as we can so that they will go into them. And we've taken quite an enabling approach to markets and community fundraising, and also to what I'm calling analogue busking. So that's busking without an amplifier, but that's not really in this one. The next slide, we'll jump straight into mobile trading. I've used AI to craft pictures for us, so you'll see a variety of increasingly terrible images as we go. Mobile trading, we're looking at things like food trucks and coffee carts who trade at one location on a temporary basis. So by its nature, it must be a temporary activity. And they can move from location to location, but the distinction between this and roaming is on the length of the stay. They stay longer. We are going to have a list of pre-approved sites in the bylaw, and that's what we've always done. Those are the ones we've all checked off for the conditions, and they'll have a much lower fee to go to those sites. And then where somebody wants to go to a different site, we'll investigate that separately, and then will be the cost of that investigation. So the next few slides are just the list of those potential sites, and I just really want to retain yes or no to most of them. So this is an old site that's been around since at least 2013. It's the Rapati Street site, sitting on the corner of the cycle trail there. It doesn't seem to have had a huge amount of use. We weren't sure if it was worth retaining or not, though it does seem to meet most of the criteria we would want in place in terms of being further back from the main road.
Is that the one where you've got Little Valley Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
Using the French.
I don't know, it'll be used for.
Yeah, yes. So yeah, okay.
What?
Yes, I say that's my part of town. There's been a there was one from Roxburgh that used to come through. You see up there.
Oh,
I didn't see anything on the road other than cars being parked. Definitely during Blossom Festival weekend.
So this is one that's in current use, and on the next slide I've actually kept the photo from the original bylaw so you can see the difference. The roading team think, there you go, pre-roundabout. The roading team think we're really unlikely to get permission from Waka Kotahi to keep this one due to the 2 stack highways in the major intersection there. So what we're proposing to do, if you agree, is to remove that site in the bylaw and keep the one on the other side of Pioneer Park, which is on the next slide. And then we could potentially, if need be, extend that one up.
now hang on again, so you're going to delete the one which is on the road, on the.
Was that the old pie cart one?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, and but what about the ones where the market sites are currently?
We'd like to keep it.
Yeah.
It's a site, the advice from roading is it would be unlikely to get permission now, but because it's working well, they don't see a problem in keeping it, but we would need to just make sure that's all good with Waka Kotahi. And if we really found that by removing that other site, we had a dearth of extra things waiting to park, we could possibly move further up that
Right.
way.
I'm gonna get up, so you're going to retain, even though it's not marked, that area in there.
Up the market site,
Yeah.
it will come up separately as
That's
one
yeah,
of those.
sorry.
It's different.
That's the same.
This one here,
Yeah.
that's where the coffee cart currently parks.
That's the one.
Is that going?
No,
No.
no,
It's gonna be retained and possibly extended.
Yeah, yeah.
old pie cart from the 80s and 90s is gone.
The old pie cart site, yes.
The markets will come separately, and the main reason that I've separated them out, which wasn't the case in your bylaw, is we're trying to minimise the amount of trucks on the green. So in the market, of course, there may be some that do come up there, but by habit, we're trying to get them to safe parts of the range. So we'll keep that one. And the next one is the Russell Street car park. This one's at the back of both the Terrace School and Dunstan School, and it seems to be primarily used when you're speaking events on in that stadium.
Don't most of them just go in onto the grass?
Which is an option if you choose for us to investigate that for you.
Can I just, sorry about that, can I just go back a few? Yeah, you talked about market thinking on the ground. How does that affect the seven on the market area?
Sorry, the markets are on the grass.
Yeah.
The mobile trading, we're trying to keep off on grass. with the vehicles. But there might be a circumstance like this where you decide that you want us to pre-investigate a certain part of this as being appropriate for that, we'll go and talk to parts and do so, which is why I'm coming to you at this stage.
So you're saying we're going to discourage food trucks from parking up on the grass?
In mobile trading, not in markets, but in mobile trading, where possible, we'd like them to be on a paved surface.
So like on a Monday to Friday, they come in and instead of a set, exclude the markets.
Yeah.
Just on a like a regular day.
Yeah, that's.
When we get to markets, I'll present you so people of grass.
Yeah.
This
You're
year,
gonna get your grass, don't worry.
how often has that been booked?
We think it's very rare. Gordy wasn't really able to say off the top of his head. As James indicated, people are tending to be somewhere else.
Also, as a parent at that school, I'm gonna say that when you've got sporting events on, and it's busy, you don't want a food truck there because you've got 3 or 4 school buses, plus all the parents picking their kids up.
Close to park, actually.
Yeah, you do not, and then all the kids walking to them from the hostel, you don't want food trucks and things sitting there.
I would have thought it would be more on weekend for sporting events.
But you're not gonna forget, because you're gonna come down further on the grass.
Yeah.
I agree.
People over.
And to be fair, there's a lot of sporting things that happen during the week too.
And you can request that we give you a better site within this area, which is
Yeah.
one of the games we're heading.
Have you got any other where?
The other side?
I don't, but I'm sure Parks can come up with a
There
solution.
might be an idea for a solution, because that is a very
Yeah.
important car park.
What about up here? But on the weekends, that's chocolate with sporting, supporting little sporting teams.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I could only see that in the weekend to have it for sports crowds.
I think as Alex has suggested, maybe this conversation going into the parks. And
Yeah.
maybe some space in the ground, but that can be identified as a better location. Also, just a reminder, and we'll be careful in our language as well. We're in a workshop, so we can't actually have decisions made. We
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
recommendations or suggestions.
We're having a chat.
That's right,
That's all this is.
not decisions.
No.
Thank
Feedback representative of the community.
you.
And the next one is going to be a surprise to you all. This is the clip I pulled from the exact old version of the bylaw. I think it's that very shady bit at the top of, I can't read the name of the track, but just at the intersection, if you move the mouse down, about that, up a bit, there.
Yeah.
That seems to be the marking they've made. I've updated the photo for you on the next slide, but couldn't see a rationale why this one is likely to be retained.
Okay, that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
If Parks then has any other opposing views, we'd like to hear it, but we agree with that. In principle.
Yeah. In principle.
And the next one. And I also do need to give you the disclaimer that I need to take the list when it's formalised for the official investigations. We can't. This is how the Boundary Street car park is referred to in the previous bylaw. we have had arguments amongst ourselves quietly over whether that is the top or the bottom of Boundary Street. And are just unsure, but what you can see on the next slide is the area where trading is tending to happen. And that is a high-speed zone that is likely in breach of Waka Kotahi rules. However, the parks team have indicated it's one they would like to keep if we are able. So our recommendation there, depending on your thoughts, is to take it to Waka Kotahi and see what they say. But with the understanding that as we've gone to at least 70 kilometres and will shortly move to 100, it's likely to be in breach of their rules about speed setting.
Sorry, pardon me, can you just repeat what you just said?
Yeah.
The zoning for speed?
Because the speed limit on the highway through there
Yeah.
That's
is
50 k's.
70,
Yeah,
and it goes up to 100.
A little bit further down.
it's quite a bit further
But
down.
further, but
Yeah, oh, yeah, you see on the outside.
It's boundary
Or
there.
either,
Yeah,
yeah, it's very close to the change to a high speed zone, and they've got different rules and criteria. I only know as much as a quick conversation with Holly where she said they're likely to decline it on those grounds. But it's worth having a conversation because it's quite a popular site.
because that's a 50k zone where that is now.
Yeah, and there's an access way off the highway as well that they're using to get in and out of it. So it may be a case of one that we can put some control around, or it may be one we dismiss on.
With the Naitahu development and the extra volume of traffic, which will be coming out a little bit further up the road, is that 70k transition likely to get pushed?
That's
It would,
NZTA.
yeah, that's
That's
that increase in vehicle movements, it would be grounds to consider that.
It's boundary road, not boundary street.
Use it as.
But that
Boundary road.
area there gets used quite a lot.
Almost daily, isn't it?
Especially down
Yeah. Oh, he's got down the corner here.
coffee.
Oh,
So that was it's tried to retain that one. If
yeah,
we,
Mr. Lee, yeah.
If we can.
we can.
Might be a couple of things.
And next slide is Lodge Lane, and that's that little street in the middle of Clyde that is sometimes closed to vehicles. It's where the little red dot is there. And the disclaimer here is that the bollards that can be removed for vehicles to get through there are unlikely to be removed for a single food truck, but it would be an option for something smaller like a cart that was pushed in potentially. And it
Would that still be considered a mobile food?
could be.
Because it doesn't have a motor.
Oh, it's trading in public place on a
Okay.
mobile basis.
Mm.
So it depends how we define that, which we
Okay.
haven't yet done. Yeah, so it would be a site that's possible in those grounds, but because they've said that it's unlikely to remove bollards for a single vehicle only for a market, we've also suggested Miners Lane as a potential other location, although it's much, much quieter, so probably much less appealing.
That's right in the harbour with about 6. But food outlets are not really open to be able to stick about it.
Just potentially, so it could be something we don't investigate, or it could be something that adds vibrancy or a different offer.
So, yeah, there's two arguments there, I think that, sometimes, I'm sure there'll be a peak period here where the cafes can't handle all the business that is currently in the town, and essentially you've got people waiting 30, 40 minutes for a coffee that they probably.
So that could be like an event or something you're talking about.
Well, it could just be around that peak Christmas, New Year period, where many of the places are very busy already. Those will theorise, right, that may be the case. I haven't spoken to this, but I suspect many of them are pretty.
But I guess wherever you look, if that argument could be used for absolutely everything, because if you think about what's currently going on right across the road from the Tinga.
Yes. Yep.
So,
And the inverse.
yeah, totally.
We've had this in Cromwell where there are a number of physical building premises who have said, that's not very fair, that operation can set up just over there down in Park, just outside of the CBD area. How does that fit, right? So there's two arguments, right? One is meeting a need and then supporting the community or the whoever might be going, along with it's also competing against others.
Yep.
This is why it's tricky.
Very, you're not even going to get it right.
We'll
are
get
you?
some feedback on that one, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yep. But you may find the whole point, and I think was Alex's first kind of tag in there was the crowd pulls the crowd. It's actually the more vibrancy you create, the more likelihood it is that there'll be overflow into those that will be established as simple. And this is one of the arguments for common law redevelopment, is actually if you can create vibrancy in the common law, it will actually a crowd is a crowd. And we use this example, like if you were walking down the main street in Wellington, and you walk past 6 restaurants and only one of them's got people in it, what restaurant are you going to choose to go into? You're not going to the empty ones, are you? You're always going to go to the full. So same theory.
I'll leave room in the mix for exploration, noting that we're not making decisions, this is just where you want us to give you more information. And the other thing we could do is come back to you with some conditions that could potentially be attached to a site like that for consideration. And that's Miners Lane as well, it doesn't have the foot traffic of the other areas, but it's got those other things that we really want, like close proximity to a public toilet, nice big wide road spaces. So we thought it was one to put in the mix if anyone wants it. That's mobile trading done. The next slide should start looking at markets, unless there are any other sites that have come to mind for any of you that you'd like us to look into.
They are sites on public land, correct?
Correct.
What controls do we have currently over
Yeah, so.
private, like the area which was
Considering we're coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carnivorous?
We have no control site from seafood safety.
That's right.
What's this?
There was an argument from hospitality sector saying that if wise council supporting to encourage that sort of behaviour when these people don't pay rates, we do. The counter to that is that they have to have a licence from council to operate. And that's the argument I've used, is that's the tax that we collect on behalf of the ratepayers to allow them to do it.
And that might be, I guess, in the rural setting, where you're not going to have the issue of lots and lots of people or businesses around it, where it's a pretty truck set up, which actually does a really good public good.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I guess it's got a bit of, I guess, my concern would be is that it was so prescriptive, you couldn't allow for things, and we'd have to be mindful that whatever comes out of it isn't going to restrict people in other areas that necessarily have to.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we'd started with the assumption of vibrancy and an enabling approach. And there will be a bit more to that one in the coming slide. I've probably tried to balance that as well. So,
Roger?
Yeah, the new Riverside development
He's got to come.
and road here.
There.
It would seem to me to be,
Logical.
an obvious one.
yeah,
Yeah.
Especially the warehouse council. Once you remove that concrete area. I'll get out my grinder one day and do it under cover of
We'll
darkness.
come back to that one.
Yeah.
That should have been
Good
on
day,
the
like you,
great.
Because it's, there's 2 spaces down there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been designed for that purpose, so.
It'd be embarrassing to go up there at foot, wouldn't it?
If you want us to operate going up 14% a year, like the ratepayers argument.
We haven't even started to touch those fees yet. That's going to be fun.
No, of course
No,
not.
we're just giving direction.
Yeah.
We could have placed it.
Yeah. There's
Next slide. Okay, these are your market sites. So again, we're trying to identify some sites for pre-approval, other locations considered on a case by case basis. If we're to investigate a new site, it's likely to have a high fee. These other ones will come under the standard fees when we set them. And the sites are Riverside, Pioneer Park, which is the existing site, just to retain it as it is. Next one, unless anyone wants to say no to that one, next one. Molyneux Park, it's not in the previous bylaw, but it is in use as a market site from time to time, so the park seems to be set up in this one in there.
Makes sense.
Seaton Square came from a conversation with the parks team as well. The caveat here is there's no nearby public toilet. So that usage of that site for a market would probably require waterlooms and things like that.
Would that be the responsibility of the person controlling the market?
So this public toilet's pretty close to there, isn't it?
It's only 2 blocks.
Yeah.
To the Colombo Clyde railway station. 2 blocks along the side of the road. Yeah, but the thing is, if somebody's under the current booking system, if I came along as an event manager and was booking a market in Seaton Square, the system ticks a box saying you need toilets, so I'd have to bring in portaloos. So
It currently says that.
that's how the system works, because if you expect a crowd of X, you've got to supply X, Y, Y, yeah, that's what.
Relationship ratio for that.
Small details that we need to go away and check with the direction you give us. And the Clyde Railway Station Reserve,
Mm-hmm. That has been used before too. Yeah.
I thought were really great in there.
Yeah.
The next one is Lodge Lane, when closed off. Unlike for the mobile trading, Ronan would come and remove the bollards and get trucks in there maybe for a market.
Mhm.
And then same as last time, we've also suggested miners as a potential location that could be explored.
Doesn't A and P show come under the market umbrella? Or is that a separate?
I believe it is separate classification and it's an event other than trading in public places. However, I have put on the Google Maps, which might start to cover that, and I'll go away and check it for you.
Well, it is separate. Because you've got, danger. In the meantime.
And if these sites are appropriate for a large show like that, they may be appropriate for a farmer's market. I'll put them both on the list. And the last one on this list is Omako Domain.
Centre of the universe, that.
Any other market locations? Tracy's just given us a couple.
Just remind me, a couple of years back, I went to, and it may have actually been mentioned in it's a Clyde one, in the, it was is it the early harvest? The great early harvest, and it's in a little. Where is that? Is that
railway station?
Is that at the railway station?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, couldn't remember quite where we parked and things by the time we finished the day.
Remember seeing the just remember to get.
Some Bathans.
Yes. We don't own any land that's in Bathurst.
And we don't do it, no. So,
The tennis court.
The small exception,
Who owns the tennis court?
some of it's still subject to, grading. The grades can be made under here, so it's still in that process.
Oh.
Yeah. What it grading that, sorry.
Yeah.
And it had been for some years.
So the community has used that for lots and lots and lots of market days.
And some of it's the pub, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
A little tiny bit council members of the still part of the rate and sale process.
It's interesting.
Otherwise, we just well.
Okay. Do you have more slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
So utilising public space for alfresco dining or shop displays has been one we've grappled with at quite some length. We've had complaints from some mobile trading operators that they are being charged a fee to utilise public space, whereas a cafe or a dining space is getting that space for free on quite a permanent occupation. So would we look at charging for that space? We did go through what that could look like, and there would be several conditions for it. You'd need to leave 1.5 metres of footpath left over. There's quite a bit more to it and map out the site. it's very administratively burdensome for not that many areas where it would work. So when we have sort of landed, although this is something we need to test with all of you, is that as we've taken that permissive approach to mobile trading and allowed them to operate near shops, it's probably fair to also permit use of the footpath space without going through that giant exercise of charging for the space. So we're sort of leaning that way. However, we are happy to continue to investigate charging if all of our elected members wanted us to do so.
You sum it up in a nutshell, it's gonna cost more to the minister than you can get in return. And the majority of places in Alex and Clyde where cafes are on the foot, they're not actually on the footpath per se, they're on areas which are adjacent to the footpath. The footpath is actually quite clear. Like I'm thinking of my two other offices, the Tin Goose and Sidewalk Cafe. I mean, the setback from the footpath is quite. And it's like if any of those places were licensed, the licensed premises would cover that area outside to that footpath.
The alcohol licenses
Yeah.
where it may be a problem that they're not technically owning the space, they may not be able to do that.
Yeah.
But there's things we can do about
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I think, there's flexibility around that. So,
I can only think of 9 businesses in the Alex area that would even have seating or anything outside.
Well, I can think of one in my little local patch that if we suddenly took away the outside
Well, just-
dining, it would,
well,
we
there's-
would have, we've got enough things being
The administrative
made
cost
less
doesn't
in our
make sense.
communities. We don't want to make that.
it's not worth the grief associated with it.
Back to the vibrancy, we're trying to.
Yeah.
Right. So what we tend to do is put some conditions around how tidy they must be, that if an authorised officer requests them to be removed, they must sort of leave it as it is.
And, you know, and the thing is, the majority of the people who are in that business look after those sites. They, you know, they're clean, they've got plantings, that they've adhering to our smoke-free and vape-free policies. You know, they've got the signage out there discouraging that sort of thing. So it doesn't really need to change.
No, I back that up. I think it adds to the vibrancy of our town. And I think it's in the interests of the business owners to make sure they are clean, tidy, and it's looks after, they look after it in that sense. Yeah, so I think it works really well.
So you suggest. We suggest.
Consideration. And our next couple of suggestions or questions for you, we're sort of roaming into a new area for us a little bit. So we've talked about ice cream vans and coffee carts already in terms of that they were fixed in one location for a few hours. But what we're looking at here is your Mr. Whippy roaming through the residential area. There are a few ways that we can do this. We can not require a mobile trading permit of any mobile ice cream van. We can require an easy to get mobile trading permit. And in that permit, we can either approve it anywhere, only in certain areas, or exclude it from certain areas. So I sat down with the planning team and asked them what would be the easiest things to do. And we've come up with 2 different options for ice cream vans and coffee carts. So if it were to be ice cream vans, we could say a mobile trading permit allows you to trade at one location for up to 20 minutes, as long as you meet all these road rules and you're not in the middle of the business resource area or you're only in the residential area. If you just flip to the next slide, Sarah. For coffee carts, we found that the coffee carts are tending to meet a need in the industrial areas where there are less cafes, but people are wanting to just grab a quick coffee. This is more happening in Cromwell, but has the potential over here as well. So we thought we could extend how we treat ice cream vans to also treat coffee carts. And again, we could let them go anywhere. We could exclude them from the business resource area or the centre of town, or we could just permit it in an industrial area. And then the other question amongst that is if that coffee cart was to also sell pre-made food, would that change how you felt about it?
Your coffee carts sell food.
Muffins,
Muffins. Oh, bacon buttons, you know.
Yeah.
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 What's currently the process for ice cream vans?
I'm unclear on what it is. I did see a reference in one of the earlier bylaws that they were allowed to roam around as long as their chimes did not provide a nuisance. Which is what made me start.
to every parent.
Yeah, I was gonna say as a parent, it's.
And small dogs.
Bylaw, we can't enforce it, but that's to the side. So it's sort of, we have to come up with something that's fair to a group that are operating, which is why we've suggested these as
We've got
options.
some real challenges facing it. There's a huge growth in the food truck industry. I've noticed with Blossom Festival, where 5-6 years ago, I probably had 15 food trucks. Now I'm turning them away. We've got over 50. It's been massive growth in the last 5 years. It's that side ferries. They've tried to market that. It hasn't really been that successful, but given time it will. You
The
don't.
thing is that if they're meeting the requirements,
Mm.
if somebody wants to start up a food truck, invest their own money and do that and meets council requirements and the food legislation, we're actually, pending what comes out of all of this and our discussions and suggestions, etc., we're actually, we can't engage it, it's up to them whether they.
Exactly, yeah, and we can facilitate it by, as we're trying to do designated areas where they can stay, things like that. But we've got to be conscious of seeming to be supporting something which could be in conflict with other permanent businesses who are paying region rates, etc. You know, I've had, like with the Kiwi Milk Bar was operating during Blossom Festival and having not Mr. Whippy, but another ice cream supplier parked right outside Kiwi Milk Bar selling ice creams. Really annoyed the proprietors of the Kiwi, which is understandable, you know. So it has to be managed to a certain extent.
I did snip some of the maps so you could see what it looked like. There at the very end of the presentation, Sarah. The area we actually have the most challenge with it is probably Onco, because that is where we have industrial and business resource area right on top of each other. Everywhere else we've got quite a tidy gap, but this map here, business resource areas are the grid. So that's that area there. This is industrial and this is industrial. So in all of the other townships you have in Vincent, you're kind of snipping them and keeping them away from each other. That's in Clyde, that's in Alex. But when we get to Omako, we would probably need to consider what we do with a bit more carefully.
And considering the, logistics and.
But then the market itself would have some sort of regional control over that too, because the food truck operator is not going to go with the instant demand. Currently, I mentioned demand for take-out coffees in the industrial area of Wanaka is actually met by the existing businesses, which are right across the road from each other. Not like in Cromwell, not like Boundary Road here, where there isn't anything for, you've got to drive to go, hence the popularity of putting some of those.
I guess we've got to think about what, let's just say Omaka has a massive insurgents.
Yeah.
And vibrancy, breeds vibrancy, and all of a sudden we've got, and there is people who are, I know people who are looking at doing things in Omaka.
Yeah.
So there is the potential for exactly the, not necessarily conflict, but competing. And I don't think a little bit of competition's all that bad.
No.
Actually, especially if it's healthy.
Yeah, I think, possibly to your point, the ice cream truck selling out in front of Kiwi Milk Bar, if that was under the roaming piece, it can only be with the 2 minutes.
Yeah, up to 20 minutes.
If it's mobile trading, it's got to be in one of his designated locations, and that is not one of his designated locations.
So it would be the option for ice cream vans is to restrict them to residential areas as well. Whereas coffee carts was suggested more industrial, if we were at one.
How do you think to enforce that?
Can a roaming one also go and get a,
Yes,
yes, they can.
absolutely.
So essentially, if they wanted to be next to Pioneer Park, they could,
Yes,
and just pay the fee to get the proper.
I'm just thinking with the ice cream vans, because they're here a lot. And I'm just thinking, how are you going to enforce that? Is it just going to create more administrative paperwork to deal with for them to get the permits, and then they can ignore it completely and there's nothing anyone's really going to be able to do to stop them?
But we don't really like to ignore something in the bylaw if we know it's there. And when we're talking this bylaw, it would be breach of bylaw, which is a pretty difficult thing to enforce. And we don't really have enforcement tools on a vehicle when it's moving either.
Yeah.
So it would be sending somebody out to knock on the door and serve them with notice when they were in the wrong location. What we try to do in enforcement, and one day we'll bring you the enforcement strategy we're quite far through, is try to get the highest level of voluntary compliance we can by making voluntary compliance easy, by making the rules simple and communicating them clearly. And it's pillar one of that to be in front of you one day strategy. For an ice cream van, that probably is as easy as either not in the business area, because that's where businesses are, or only in the residential area. And for a coffee cart, probably the same. It's either not in the business resource area or only in the industrial area. But all of those have got plenty of time to think on it. We'll be back when these are worked up if you want to ponder it for a while and look at some maps. I think you'll have access to our GIS to see what it physically looks like and where they would go and what would be best.
We can treat the ship as managed by exception. If they're there for too long, if they're winding up the local business.
You'll know that.
oh, you'll hear it, right?
Yeah,
And so it's putting it on paper, what the plan is and what the expectation is, and there's a measure of, I guess, self-policing by the community. And when we're informed that someone's breaching, then we can act.
And we can also act on the affirmative as well. Right, I'll leave you guys to ponder that one for a few more months while we work it up, and then we'll return to you on that. I believe that is everything. That was to extend the Molyneux Park zone down toward Ice and Line and actual areas.
That was my white path area, because it's part of the.
When I spoke to Councillor McPherson on the way in and said, this is what we're discussing with you today, and he instantly said, oh, what does that mean for things on the footpath? Is there anything else like that that's jumping to mind that you want us to make sure we cover or have covered off or have considered before we bring you the draft?
So when you say things on the footpath, what are you?
That's what I was referring to.
Frisco zone.
It's in the Alfred zone.
Training in public places and something springs to mind immediately that you'd like us to make
You know, you just cite what's recently happened in Queenstown when I put the charges up by, and just, that's my immediate reaction. They've just given me the reassurance they're not doing it, so I'm happy. So,
And that would also be paper plus, for example, if the box still go, it's the same thing.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've got Sarah and Wayne.
Yep.
To talk about elected member protocols for elections. It's coming up very quickly. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, we won't take up too much time. We just wanted to kindly reminder for all that, as we're coming rapidly approaching October. So just a reminder that, we have got a pre-election period coming up and what that might mean for you, all of you. So just run quickly over the kind of key dates. We've once again, we're working with Elections NZ on the elections. So Anthony Morton is our main point of contact, which has been the case in previous elections. Myself and Wayne will be working, and obviously involved too. So also a comms component with Paula and her team working through. gets, and then people encouraged to vote and signed up to vote at this stage. So key dates, election period starts on the 11th of July, running through to the 11th of October, and just a few other dates to note there. So we'll have nominations open on the 4th of July. So I know you've all been through this process before, just making sure that you're aware of it and the requirements.
Sorry, can you just go back one slide? I just didn't see that. What is the final results on 16th of October?
Yeah. So close of voting 12 noon as usual. We'd hope to have the prelim progress results and phone call done quite quickly. And assuming there's not a really close run at the end of it, that will be it. But it may be that we have to wait a little bit longer until the 16th.
So, my class selection, the three of us the other day, and as Sarah said, we will, as soon as we can get those results out to you, we get on the phone. So we divide and conquer and give you those because we can, but, you know, we need to know.
And the logistics are complicated slightly this year because we're going to use orange voting bins, which are becoming more and more familiar. I think we used in the by-election in 2022. So they will be placed in convenient locations at all supermarkets, service centres and libraries to make voting as easy as possible. So the logistics of getting those bins in on the 11th will be a little bit tricky, but we'll work that through. And then, as Sophia says, have a team to notify everyone shortly afterwards. We want to roll out candidate videos this year. So everyone who is in the mix has the opportunity to be in a 90-second video. We'll do like a script and try and get that out. They were rolled out at Tauranga election last year and they proved to be really successful. So it'd be good to do that.
How does that work?
So
every person who puts their hand up can have a 90-second.
Has the option to have a 90-second
And
video.
who pays for that 90-second video to be, or is it just a little?
We would arrange it. It would be we're going to make it as streamlined as possible and very straightforward. So we'll do the same background, same questions. We'll brief you with the script, with the questions rather, and then we'll probably do a couple of takes and make it very easy. I think we'll just do a handheld video on the phone, so that it kind of same for everyone, but it just gives a little bit more opportunity to kind of press.
So the same set of questions.
Same set of questions for everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
So we make it kind of level playing field. Yeah. So they're worth a look at if you want to go on the channel website. They're all still there and they're really interesting and some interesting feedback. And it did encourage a higher voter turnout, I think, rather than just having 150 words. So that should be workable. The Electoral Commission are quite proactive with encouraging enrolment this year as well, so they can hopefully some more engagement stuff. We've got a bit of a digital comms campaign coming out shortly, and I'm going to send out some questions which I'd like us answered anonymously, but just around what it's like being an elected member, what you've done good, what, things like that. So that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. I'll send it out to all of you, and hopefully it shouldn't take too much of your time, but just to get some little sound bites that we can roll out just to encourage some more people to stand. And then, like before, we'll be liaising with external groups to encourage them to facilitate candidate evenings. So that's happened before, and we'll encourage that again in the past, There's been some small changes since 2022, but very minor. The voting period is slightly reduced, and given the reduction in postal services, they've now extended the days for delivering votes. And the Mori board polls, which obviously doesn't affect us at this stage. Yeah. So just looking at changes.
Back on that previous one. What do you mean by telephone dictation voting? I don't understand this.
So that will be rolled out. So Election NZ are involved in that. So there will be a phone number within the voting booklet, which you can phone, and everything that's written in the booklet will be available verbally to be. It's an automated service. So you ring the number, and then it pretty much reads you the booklet out, so that people who are partially sighted can listen to that service, which is quite cool. Just opening it up to more people. Yeah. So just recognising the changes following the representation review, which you'll all be aware of, and looking at those numbers that have changed. These are the ones from 2023 population estimates, and then the representation on community boards, with one member from each ward. So each community board will have a total of 5 members, unlike current range. So this hasn't changed at all. The election process you will be quite familiar with, but just a reminder of what's required for that. Can be done online or in person at any service centre. And the closing date for nominations is the 1st of August. Equally with the candidate profile statements and photos. Again, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any changes, so exactly as it was in 2022. Just the moments for that. Briefly touched on, but the election results, and again, just that final result, if needed, will be released on the Thursday, the 16th of October. Just a little bit on donations, and also on election expenses. We'll just whiz through these quickly, and I will put these all in SharePoint. But there's no changes here. Election signage, and again, there's a portion on the website about that, just some give information about where signage is permitted and requirements around that, and when it needs to be up and when it needs to be taken down. So we adhere to the rules for the general election, which is same as being all signage removed.
Towards considering you don't actually go out and vote on an election day.
It is, yeah, because voting booths as such. But yeah, it's the same requirements for it to be taken down the night before. And then just getting into protocols. So, do you want to run through these, right? Just
that, you know, you, as a sitting member, you're in a unique position, and we've got to make sure that the council is separated from a candidate who's running an election. I suppose that's the thing. So, the law says council, the second bit down, the second one down, that's the bit that says in the law. And so, you know, we won't be helping with stuff, you know, like you've got to, not that anyone does, but it's just a message that we won't be doing anything extra to help anyone.
and just recognising, I'm sure you all will, but recognising the difference between business as usual and electioneering.
Yeah.
And being, you know, aware of perception. We've talked about perception already today, but I guess that is what we need to think of, and just have that in mind when, you know, also in meetings, but then whilst you might be around the district, doing various duties, and how that could be perceived. Is it business as usual, or is it considered campaign? Just to be clear in your head, I suppose, about what that.
So if you haven't done anything in your community, and then all of a sudden you tune up to everything, including the cafe. So right, you'll find you can still keep going to the cafe,
Yeah, that's the one.
and you can still keep going to the new world.
And I suppose, you know, that will be reflected in what's coming on the agendas over the pre-election period, and anything that is perceived to be contentious or could be inflammatory will be off the agendas until the new sitting members are in. But that said, there will obviously still be business as usual that will need to be attended to, and that will just carry on. So just, yeah, recognising that perception, I suppose. So all of these things kind of cover those issues. So another one here, and all quite obvious, but just being aware of any council collateral that might be used as part of your campaigns, and how that needs to be not taken from council resources. So things like photos,
So in the
bars, things like that.
with your email address, obviously, in the event that someone sends you a message in relation to the campaign, in relation to your campaign, if you were on, do you just say, do you just respond and say, can you please use my personal?
Yeah, or guidance even is that if you might receive something to your CODC email, but you should respond from your personal email,
Okay,
which is a little bit clunky, admittedly,
but so not
That's
just a response, okay.
just so that that's really clean and any, you know, any tracing of potential email correspondence would be transparent.
Yeah,
You know, and this, you know, like use of council's cars probably doesn't apply so much to you guys, but you know, it's just something to be mindful of that, you know, could be things of electioneering when you're travelling out in council cars and all those kind of other collateral that you might be using in council. And then looking at social media stuff, I suppose, you know, we're already seeing some things happening, you know, there's a little bit more heat on Facebook and the likes. So just being aware of what you're tagging, what you're liking, what you're sharing, and just being conscious of that, and making sure that try and keep it to your own channels.
so for example, I put that thing up on about the LVP. Is that going to be considered electioneering?
That's business as usual.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Yeah.
Just about to say, because I've been quite a lot up lately. And it's all related to the LTV. Yes.
Yeah, and anything that is coming across your desk as councillor or as community board member, is business as usual.
And your heads, if you think about it, if it's something that you use in your campaign, like this volunteering, I'm going to advocate for the trees or whatever it is. And you're thinking forward to the future around that next term. And as Sarah said, anything that is current business that you're dealing with, Warren Pines, Mountain Stadium, Ownford Hub, that's all business before you, that you do in the course as your current term. So, but we can help. If you've got any questions, please send out to the team. If you want to run into by us, we can help.
Very different process when you're just you'll meet with the public doing it for a first time versus now, isn't it?
And I suppose anything with the public that is considering running, we're here to help them as well. So just like you guys, we would help them if there are questions for them.
Yeah, just a bit of follow up there, but just about tagging and all those kind of things that, you know, it's probably a little bit more mainstream than they had once been. And a similar guidelines going around for staff as well. So we're going to put that out at the end of next week. And just a reminder coming towards the 11th of July that, you know, just we need to be considerate and thinking about these.
So that's when we're going to.
That's the official pre-election period. Yeah, so that's when it really comes in. Yeah, to be period. So, so we'll put these in SharePoint, and so they're all available. But yeah, as we said, Wayne and I are here for any questions or any kind of niggly ones that just are not quite clear on. We're here to help you around that. Any questions?
Yeah.
We're around.
I think it was last campaign, if I remember correctly, what used to be called Monteiths. There was an evening there where some of us, and I think Saskia was there, and so some of us elected members were there, and the public were invited to come along and find out what was involved from the coalface. As being involved in electioneering and becoming a elected member. Any plans for such an event?
Yeah, we will, and we've got it penciled in for the 1st of July, which I think is a Tuesday, I think. So I think it will be at Ida. We're just confirming the venue, but a similar thing, and we have ORC are going to come along to that as well. So just to encourage anyone who might want to stand to come and ask any questions that they might have. I think Stephanie will have a brief slideshow kind of overview of what it entails. And I suppose if we've got any outgoing members that we know of, we may have someone there to speak, but we haven't confirmed the details at the moment.
No, we had the chair of Tibbet Valley, who indicated that he was going to stand again, come along and talk, because again, we can't have you guys. You guys are standing for you guys to talk. It's okay to mix and mingle, but have someone do a sort of a formal bit of a rundown in front of a group. It's fine to have you guys there and chatting over a cuppa for one of you to present in front of that group and wants like to be elected member when you're running as well as a conflict. So if we have a sense of someone who isn't going to stand and prepared to do that, we will have someone talk. Otherwise, it'll probably be myself, Peter, we'll get up and say a few words, and then we would encourage, you know, those of you that are current elected members, or the new people to chat to you guys over a drink or something like that. So we'll just, that way you won't necessarily and just see what happens with that one.
A few details to be firmed up on that, but yeah, 1st of July is the penciled in date. So that is on the key dates on the sponsor. Have I missed anything, Wayne?
So when will these be meeting before we enter that phase?
Yeah, scary as all.
See anything else? Yeah, something else?